In this session we're going to revise some of the pragmatic phenomena that have turned up earlier in Kuiper and Allan and add a few more, and perhaps just underline how important pragmatics is in giving us a sense of what the meaning of an utterance is in the context. So this section is taken from Kuiper and Allan 9.1, chapter 9, subsection 1. The first area that we can revise is Deictics, another new word which we've actually looked at already in various aspects. The thing about Deictics is that their meaning in context is, if you like, more precise, more specific than it is in general in the language. So they're sometimes called shifters because they change their meaning depending on the context in which they're used. Let's start with here and there, which are familiar already. Here, today, when I'm doing this little PowerPoint, is an apartment in Sydney, Australia. Where there is, I'm not too sure. It would depend on what I was talking about. If I was talking about there are a lot of people gathered in the square, it might be Turkey. So the exact nature of where here is and where there is depends on the context. So these are called spatial deictics because they have to do with locations in space. So where here and there are depends on the context in which the words are used. Then there are temporal deictics, and again we've mentioned those in passing previously. Today is the 11th of June, and yesterday was the 10th of June, and the year is 2016. So that's the exact meaning that they take on in the current context, but it's not the same as how they would be in another context. If we were talking about when Dickens was maybe chatting to the family about what he'd written today, well, we'd be in the 19th century. So the actual day, which is today, again depends on the context, and yesterday depends on when today is. Then there are the personal deictics, and we've covered those as well. I, you, and we. They, the exact I, whoever that is, and whoever you are, and whoever we might be, depends on the context in which we happen to be speaking at the time. So they're not a result of sentence meaning, they're a result of utterance meaning, because when you utter a sentence, those specific meanings, if you like, shift depending on where you are in the context. This is something else we've looked at previously, which is how we assign reference to a referring expression, and we have looked at referring expressions previously. Referring expressions are given an actual referent in a context, so we can make a distinction between a referring expression, which is something in the language, part of the language code, and a referent, which is assigned to it only when we have an utterance, and that utterance is produced in a context. So let's think about this as a kind of bizarre noun phrase. The elephant in the rear vision mirror. Well, that's quite easy to work out from the point of view of the language as a code. There is an elephant, a specific elephant, and it's in the rear vision mirror, probably because we can see it in the rear vision mirror. So there's a specific elephant there. Well, which elephant is this? Depending on where we are and whether elephants have names or not in this particular part of the world, it might be Henry or Fred, and that would depend on the context. So the specific referent, Henry the very large elderly elephant, or Fred the young frisky relatively new elephant, well, which one it is depends on the context. Then we've seen in the syntax section that there are times when things are not there, the process we called ellipsis. and we also looked at minor sentences. So if we ask in context who's coming tomorrow, and the answer is Roseanne, then we can add the missing bit, is coming tomorrow, because this is part of the context. The context is who's coming tomorrow. That's previously been said. So on the basis of the fact that that's been said previously, the answer Roseanne can be have its missing bit of the proposition filled in. Roseanne is coming tomorrow. Then there are cases where the meaning is, if you like, enriched. We close in on it. We've seen this with coordination, with and, or, and nor. You might recall that sometimes these are seen as temporal in orientation, and sometimes they're causal, this and that, this, therefore we take it causes that. The context can often be used to infer more specific meanings than there is in the sentence itself. So when the sentence is given as an utterance, then the inference is able to be drawn that this and is meant to be taken to be in that order, or this causes that. Let's take a sentence like, I'd like to go home. Well, what is home? Is this a reference to the USA, Michigan, or Flint? So in a way, enrichment is a way of closing in on not just the assignment of a referent, but also the exact referent could be the USA, it could be Michigan, or it could be Flint, the town of Flint in Michigan. So this is a kind of, we can think of this as closing in on a more specific referent. Depends on what is inferred from the context. Also significant is the notion that sentences can be ambiguous, but frequently in context they're not ambiguous. Ambiguity has, as you might imagine from what we said previously about semantics, two possible sources. Lexical ambiguity, where a word may have more than one sense, and we saw that such words are called polysemous, so we have words with more than one sense. Well, in context, they may not have all of those senses. And then there's syntactic ambiguity, where a sentence structure may be able to be understood in more than one way. And again, in context, both of those may not be accessible to us. In context, a hearer usually infers a particular meaning of all the ones that are available, because the context suggests that that's the meaning that the speaker intended. So if we say, I can't read that letter, then what do we take the speaker to mean? Particularly as regards letter, because letter is ambiguous as between a missive and a character. So is the letter an individual graphic symbol, or is it a missive? Well, you don't know until you see it in the context. Let's suppose that you get a letter from the tax department and you know what's likely to be in it, then you might say, I can't read that letter. Or if somebody has been at a particular character, a particular graphic symbol, and it's been partially rubbed out, then you mightn't be able to make it out. So in context, a letter might mean either of its two meanings, either a missive or a graphic symbol, and the context is used to disambiguate. If somebody says to us, she's coming to the house by the back road, then we have two alternatives. Either she's coming to a particular house, the house by the back road, or she's coming to the house and the direction that she is coming from is to take the back road. So in one case, by the back road is a modifier of house. In the other case, it's an adverbial to do with coming to the house. How is she coming to the house? Namely, by the back road. And again, is the house by the back road, or is she travelling using the back road? Well, in context, it's very likely that the hearer will take the speaker to be intending one of those rather than the other. So disambiguation depends on the context, and the context will allow a hearer to infer which of the two meanings was intended. The last one we haven't dealt with. There are more areas of pragmatics, but I just want to deal with one that we haven't really dealt with. Let's suppose I say to somebody that I'm at a party with, "This is a great party." Okay, here's a context. Everyone looks to be having a good time. Lots of animated conversation. It's warm, people are dancing, there's plenty of fine food. Well, what's the hearer likely to take me to be saying? Well, they're likely to take me by word if she's the organizer of the party who invited me particularly. You know, you say to the organizer, "This is a great party," because in the context, that's the sort of party it seems to be, a great party. But let's suppose we take another context. A few people are sitting about. It's cold. The two of us who came don't like the music that our hosts have put on the stereo. There's no food except some bags of crisps, and we don't know any of the other people, etc., etc. And this time I say to my partner, the one I came to the party with, "This is a great party." Well, then the hearer might presume that I shouldn't be understood literally, and there's a very good reason for that. The context is not particularly congruent with this being a great party. It's congruent with being a pretty darned awful party. So what does the hearer then assume? Well, the hearer assumes I'm being ironic or sarcastic. And of course that reading comes about because of the context, not because of what I've said.